You guys are on the wrong fucking sides. And we are back. Welcome to round 2 of the Phoenix AZ Eternal Magic Legacy Series. We have Christopher Celaya on Blue White Omni show, a little bit of a brew, against Tucson hero, you know him, we love him, Frankie Rodriguez on Blue Red Delver. Do we have deck lists?
Yep, they're right there.
Okay, Jim, talk to me about Frankie's list.
So, looks like it's a pretty standard Blue Red Delver deck list of the newest iteration, with the 4 Dreadhorde Arcanists in the main deck taking the spot of what's been the typical Terramander slot. The only spicy thing that I see in the main deck is he is playing 1 copy of Forked Bolt, and he is playing 1 copy of Haze of Rage, which is a new tech card that the deck is playing because you can buy it back multiple times, pumping the Dreadhorde Arcanist and playing bigger spells. It also pumps all of your elemental tokens, so it is a very powerful card in the right sequence.
And you say typical, but this Blue Red Delver deck has gone through many iterations, and it really doesn't seem like anyone can decide what number of creatures or which creatures to actually even use. We've seen Terramanders, which are on tables today. We've seen these guys have Young Pyromancers. We see a higher True Name Nemesis count. Dreadhorde Arcanist does seem like it's a real card, and it is ridiculously powerful, especially with this Turn 1 Delver from Frankie. So the Omni Show deck, in this blue-white iteration that Chris is running, is going to be full of cards no one's ready for. I see Narsets, I see Terminuses, I see Teferi Time Raveler. So maybe this is more like a blue-white Omni Miracles?
Yeah, I talked to Chris before the event, and he does have the typical Miracles package with like the Terminuses and all the draw spells.
And the Swords to Plowshares.
As well as the Jaces and Swords to Plow. Yeah, you're right. But then he can kind of combo finish with Show and Telling in and Omniscience, and then playing something like, Emrakul. So we do see a Delver that is unflipped.
I don't play standard cards. I don't really pronounce them very well. Other spices, cards I would have to look up. What is Dovin's Veto?
So Dovin's Veto is from War of the Spark. It's the new negate. It's blue-white, counter target non-creature spell, and it itself is uncounterable. So
a lot of fun stuff from Celaya, including stuff from the latest set. The biggest being the 4 Narset Parter of Veils. How do you feel about this card and its place in Legacy right now?
I think it's in a good spot. I think it's just picking up steam in terms of what people are trying to do with it. A lot of the decks are trying to go super low to the ground and get value out of it on the early turns, stopping a deck like Miracles from setting up turn after turn after turn with the Brainstorms and the Ponders. But it is also something that allows you to just dig for win conditions. I don't think it's necessarily in its best home in something like Blue Red Delver, but in something like Miracles, or especially like a deck that Chris is running right now, it has a lot of value because it finds the most powerful spells in the deck. And I mean, you played during the time when Search for Azcanta was actually being played in Miracles. Having the ability to just play 3 mana and then have an activated Search for Azcanta is really good.
I mean, I'm not a blue player, so it doesn't really scare me. It seems less powerful than the other draw engines, but if you're a blue player, the Leovold ability, where they don't get to draw more cards, I think is extremely important. Back to the game, Frankie Rodriguez did play the Dreadnought Dread Horde Arcanist, which is going to see a Swords to Plowshares before it gets to attack, and there is the Force of Will on the Swords to Plowshares. Chris is going to brainstorm in response, trying to decide what to do about this Force of Will, and gets double Cunning Wish.
And an Emrakul.
Looks like an Emrakul. He's got a lot of big cards in his hand.
I mean, we see multiple copies of Omniscience in his hand already. So, if Chris has a way to kind of sneak that into play, we're going to be seeing some fireworks.
The Delver is finally going to flip with a Xenomorph token coming in from the board.
So this is going to be a big turn from Frankie. We have the Brainstorm reveal the Delver to the Delver, flip it. We're going to cast something like a Brainstorm or a Preordain on our main phase, and then Dread Horde Arcanist is going to be able to cast it again. So Frankie's going to be looking in the realm of 6 cards deep into his library, just one mana.
And what is he looking for?
Just more threats. Just a way to shore up the game as quick as possible. He wants to see cards right now. Like, he's got an established board, so he wants to see more like burn spells, things like that. And also he wants to find counter spells because his board is already powerful enough to to present a threat big enough to Chris that he has to react. Now he wants to shore up the fact that he can't do anything to stop what Frankie's doing.
So these players are in the 0-1 bracket right now. They both did lose their first round. We like this. We like the spicy decks here in the first couple rounds of this tournament. Anyone who watched the last tournament does remember the Infect 3 games in a row. It was on all the top tables.
Yep.
Frankie's cast a plethora of cantrips, and that's gonna be the Rage, right?
Yeah, Haze of Rage. So Haze of Rage is creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. Buy back 2, and it also has Storm. So this is a swing for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's a 10-point life swing.
And Chris is gonna call it.
Well, see, that's the thing. With the Haze of Rage on that turn, it actually was lethal because pumping the Dread Horde Arcanist allows him to get back to Haze of Rage, cast it again, which then storms for 4. So that was actually an exact point life swing. It was 18 damage. That was really impressive.
Not something I expected, but this is one of the things that people are shuffling through in these blue-red decks. So, from the sideboard of Frankie, what are you going to see? What's he bringing in?
So, I think you're going to bring in the Flusterstorms and the Pyroblasts. I think that you keep the counter spells kind of low to the ground and really make each card in your hand super potent. I do think you'll see the Narset and the Vendilion Clique as well. Those are super powerful threats that have unique abilities on them. I think that Chris played enough basic lands that you won't see the one back to basics that Frankie has poking out in his sideboard, but that's what I would kind of lean towards in this matchup. Just low to the ground counter spells, making each threat that you play a little bit more efficient.
That makes sense. I imagine Chris's plan is going to be to draw less 10 drops.
Yeah.
less Emrakuls, less Omnisciences. More maybe Show and Tell probably would have helped last game. He is playing 4 of them. From the sideboard, we have no removal, which is going to be something he wants.
So Dovin Hand of Control is actually a really interesting card. It's a 3 mana cost Planeswalker that it has. Its -1 is prevent all damage that would be dealt from a single source until the end of your next turn, or until the end of next turn, or something like that. So basically, it plays really well into the game plan that Frankie's trying to do. Is, present a Delver and then counter it. If the Delver's checked by Dovin for like 5 to 6 turns, that's really value out of that kind of Planeswalker. But the main deck from Chris is really what's going to stop Frankie, regardless of the sideboarded stuff. Like his sideboard, his main deck Swords to Plowshares and Terminuses are still going to be. He's going to be relying on them to pull a lot of weight, and just as you saw in the first game, they didn't. So that's why the first game went the way it did.
That's always the problem with these non sneak and show and tell style decks. Like, you almost need that backup show and tell, and you almost need more cards as opposed to just relying on the 4 show and tells to play Omniscience.
Yeah.
Finding that those specific cards in the exact 3 card combo is a lot more difficult than just finding one of A plus B and one of A plus B.
Yes. But I'm really surprised that you don't see something out of the sideboard of Chris to help with an aggro matchup, like, because he is running 4 Cunning Wishes in his main deck, and that is for the combo finish of the deck, playing the Cunning Wish after you have an Omniscience in play, and then getting something like Firemind's Foresight, getting another Cunning Wish, Searing Wind, things like that, in order to actually kill your opponent with those cards for free when you have Omniscience in play, is good. But like, you really want there to be a Cunning Wishable answer out of the sideboard for an aggro matchup. Like, I don't know what that card is, but I'm sure that it's something that crossed Chris's mind when he was building the deck.
I mean, Arizona is notoriously not known for, those aggro decks around there. So I imagine Chris has been testing this deck for weeks against nothing as fast as this blue-red Delver deck.
You'd be surprised. I think the blue-red Delver deck is actually picking up quite a bit of steam even in our meta. You've seen people like that play Storm, pretty exclusively play Storm, been switching off to something like blue-red Delver.
No, the deck is powerful. The deck is fun, and Dreadhorde Arcanist does give it maybe finally that little kick over to be a tier 1 deck. Has Grixis Delver picked up the Arcanist yet? I know that deck has been consistently the best Delver variant. Dreadhorde Arcanist does seem like a card that the Grixis deck wants to play.
I haven't seen any lists from Grixis in a long time on any of the top tables or at any of the big events. Typically when you see like a Grixis player, they'll still lean in on the black threats as the reason to play the black. Something like Gurmag Angler or something like Bitter Blossom is actually where you're going to be getting a lot of the value. It looks like we have a mulligan to 6 from Chris. He's going to scry.
And here we are. And a quick check of MTG Top 8 has the blue-red Delver deck as the top aggro deck, way outperforming the Grixis variants. So maybe Grixis picks up Dreadhorde and runs with it from here.
I mean, it is a super powerful thing to be able to play something like Dreadhorde Arcanist and then flashback, or equivocally flashback a Thoughtseize in the middle of your combat step. Like, that actually sounds really powerful.
Okay, Chris is getting the Ancestral Brainstorm here. With Veshland up, we see Show and Tell Terminus Island. So, game's going a lot better for Chris this go around. Draws the island. And it is Frankie's turn. We get a blind flip Delver. Xenomorph back on the table. I bet Chris is really hoping that Frankie taps out for another threat.
I think I see a copy of the Dreadhorde Arcanist hanging out in his hand, but at this point there's no real reason to cast it.
I also don't see the land.
Oh, is Frankie stuck on lands here? That would be unfortunate.
He is going to keep the ponder. He's going to draw. There's the land. There's the Volcanic and says go. Chris should have a Terminus trigger. To which Frankie has a Spell Pierce, I believe. I think he has Spell Pierce up. I think he has Force of Will. No Force of Will. He's gonna let the Terminus resolve. I saw the the hotness Narset in Chris's hand, so we might get to see heads up Narset versus Arcanist.
Which, I mean, Narset kind of wins that fight because the Arcanist is just going to get back a Ponder at this point. So drawing that extra card is not going to really. Oh, there we got the Dovin. Okay. So Dovin does not. Well, I mean, it's going to be countered, but even if it was in play, it would not stop the Arcanist because it is an attack trigger, not a damage trigger.
I think we learned that the other day with Maze of Ith.
Did you learn that the other day?
I think you learned that the other day.
I did learn that the other day.
And here comes a Force of Will on the Pyromancer. Chris trying to stop things from getting out of hand.
There's the daze.
There's the daze. Frankie in the driver's seat on this one needs to get more one-cost spells in his graveyard. And there's a free Ponder, which is probably
trigger on the Pyromancer.
The only thing better than a Ponder is a free Ponder.
I don't really see what's on the Ponder, but I think I saw a Lightning Bolt. I mean, it doesn't speed up the clock a tremendous amount, but getting another Pyromancer token and then dealing a damage is definitely something that Frankie wants to be doing here. Okay, we got a Surgical Extraction. What are we hitting on the Surgical? Terminus. That makes a lot of sense. So
I mean, it does stop the board clear, and I also don't think Frankie is very familiar with what Chris is trying to do, so I don't think he knows that Show and Tell can still save the day for Chris.
Yeah, I mean, something like Omniscience off the top, or even something like Emrakul off the top, still puts Chris in a really good spot. Because I think that the only... Oh, I do think I see a Daze hanging out in Frankie's hand, so that might be a little bit problematic for his draw out of the Show and Tell plan. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a Daze. I was wrong, it's a Ponder.
Yeah, well, that's a Ponder. What's the last one? So I don't know.
I think there was 2 lands. As a Force of Will on top.
No, the last card is a card.
There's a Force of Will and a Delver. He's going to draw the Force of Will.
And there is another land from Chris. No.
So he Narset plus the Narset got the Cunning Wish.
So Chris is getting there. The Narset's probably going to die right here.
I think it has to. Like I don't see a way that you... Yeah, so he's going to take care of the Narset.
Got another free Ponder. I guess that is the only thing better than a free Ponder is another free Ponder.
But the thing is, he's not drawing a card here because of the Narset.
The Narset's still being alive.
Oh. Looks like we had a little bit of a misfire there. I think Frankie still drew the card. And the Narset from Frankie.
Oh, too late now.
Getting a Pyroblast, and that's going to shut it down.
There it is.
All right, so Frankie Rodriguez is going to take this match 2-0.
And we will be right back trying to see if we can find another feature match.